Welcome to another episode of Forgotten Uniques. In this series, I'm covering unique items in Path of Exile that aren't being used very much right now, if at all, taking a look at how they work and how they interact with other mechanics in the game, especially in regards to newer additions to the game such as Ascendancy reworks or new unique items. A link to the full playlist can be found in the description below. Today's video is all about the Formless Inferno. This unique helmet is exclusive to Breach content and is obtained by upgrading the Formless Flame using a Blessing of Zoth. However, the Formless Inferno can also drop directly from Zoth himself in the flawless Breachstone version of his domain. Now, the Formless Inferno was drastically changed in patch 3.21 Crucible League along with most of the other Breach unique items as part of a revamp of Breach League content. These changes separated the base Breach uniques from their upgraded counterparts, making them distinctly different items rather than just a weaker and stronger version of essentially the same unique. For example, the Formless Flame and Formless Inferno, where the only shared stat is the minus 30% fire resistance. Beyond that, the Formless Flame is firmly focused as an armor stacking unique, whilst the Formless Inferno branches out into minion interactions, appealing to an entirely different build archetype. Alright, let's take a look at the modifiers on the Formless Inferno. Socketed gems are supported by level 30 Infernal Legion. So we're getting straight into the minion theme of this item with Infernal Legion support, which applies a righteous fire-like effect to supported minions, making them deal fire damage over time in an area around them, but also burning their own life away in the process. Unlike Righteous Fire, however, Infernal Legion's fire damage over time isn't affected by minion life in any way, and is instead scaled purely from the level of the support gem. And this is what immediately makes this quite an interesting modifier on the Formless Inferno, because level 30 Infernal Legion deals 7,856 fire damage per second. That's 275% more base damage than a level 20 Infernal Legion, which deals just 2,092 fire damage per second. However, do keep in mind that this is a helmet, so you're missing out on a potential supporting link of damage, and in a build that would be attempting to focus on this part of the helmet, you may be better off searching for a Forbidden Shaco, which can roll up to a level 35 Infernal Legion, which has 38% more base damage than a level 30. Therefore, this modifier is going to be best used as a supporting cast to the other unique modifier on this helmet, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at the other modifiers on the Formless Inferno. Plus 60 to 100 to maximum life. This is a very good amount of life, especially considering that a lot of unique items simply don't have any life modifier to speak about. This life modifier does have a very large roll range, however, though it's worth mentioning that this is the only roll range on the item, so if necessary you can use Divine Orbs to attempt to secure a good life roll without the concern of changing other modifiers. Then we have minus 30% to fire resistance. Not only does this item provide no additional resistances, but it also actively lowers your fire resistance, putting pressure on your other gear slots. However, the type of build setup that may want to utilise this item could overcome this quite trivially using auras, which we'll discuss in this next segment about the unique modifier on the Formless Inferno. Minion life is increased by their Overcapped fire resistance. Overcapped resistance is any resistance which exists past the maximum resistance cap. Base maximum resistance is 75%, and most minions have 40% elemental resistances and 20% chaos resistance as base stats. For example then, if you had modifiers which granted a total of plus 50% to elemental resistance for your minions, and you were using Summon Skeletons which has a base of 40% elemental resistance, the skeletons would therefore have 90% elemental resistances, which is capped at a base maximum of 75% with 15% overcapped resistance. Therefore, the Formless Inferno's modifier would grant 15% increased maximum life to those minions. So by stacking modifiers to fire resistance or all elemental resistance for your minions, you can obtain a large amount of increased maximum life for your minions, and this is going to be useful when considering mechanics that deal damage based on maximum minion life. Minion Instability is a keystone which makes minions explode for a hit of fire damage based on 33% of their maximum life when they reach low life. Another option could be the transfigured version of Bodyswap, which sacrifices your minions to deal damage based on their maximum life. So the immediate synergy on the Formless Inferno then is the built-in Infernal Legion support, which makes minions take fire damage over time at a rate of 40% per second, allowing you to essentially have a setup which spawns minions and then ticks them down over time before exploding for fire damage using Minion Instability. Whilst this seems good in concept, there's a few major issues here. Firstly, there's the lack of support gem space. Whilst the Infernal Legion is the catalyst for the explosion, it's not improving the damage of the explosion itself, so you're limited to only 3 support gem links to boost the damage of Minion Instability. This is made worse if you're going for a hit-based build rather than Ignite, as the impact of the fire damage over time from the Infernal Legion support will also be somewhat lackluster. Secondly, there's the issue of the counter synergy at play here in regards to using this item with Minion Instability, where you're actively incentivized to stack minion fire resistance, yet Infernal Legion burns your minions for fire damage over time. So stacking this stat will make your minions survive longer, meaning you'll have to wait longer for Minion Instability to proc. And this is really where the use case for this item comes into question, because the best way to use the Formless Inferno is likely going to be using a normal 6-link in your body armor for your chosen minion, and either ignoring the Infernal Legion support component of the helmet, or using it as simply a supporting portion of your overall damage output, then fully focusing on the minion life modifier and making use of other mechanics to proc the Minion Instability explosion. Now, there are options such as Earendel's Embrace or its replica version, which make your summoned skeletons or raised zombies respectively take fire damage per second, potentially providing another catalyst for the Minion Instability explosion. But once again, this is a modifier which makes your minions take fire damage over time, and it's also a much lower amount. Even at a max roll of 30%, your minions will only be burning for 7.5% of their maximum life per second if they have their fire resistance capped as 75%. So it's going to take a while before the explosions go off. So one of the best options you're going to have for Minion Instability in this type of setup is the use of Summon Raging Spirits of Enormity, combined with the Tavukai unique amulet. SRS of Enormity is the transfigured version of the skill, which is ideal for Minion Instability, as the skill has a lower cap on maximum minion count, but those summoned Raging Spirits have a more life multiplier, and their hits are guaranteed critical strikes as well. Importantly, this guaranteed critical strike transfers over to the Minion Instability explosion, so you can focus entirely on scaling minion life and minion critical strike multiplier, while Tavukai is the catalyst for the explosion. This unique amulet makes summoned Raging Spirits have increased damage, duration, and maximum life, but most importantly, it makes them take 20% of their maximum life as chaos damage per second. And this modifier can be further improved up to 24% with catalysts as well, whilst it also has another modifier which can potentially roll up to -17% to minion chaos resistance. This would bring the chaos resistance for Summon Raging Spirit down to just 3%, and it would take just over 2 seconds for Minion Instability to trigger, and that's not including any damage those minions will be taking from monsters. So how much increased minion life can you actually get out of the Formless Inferno? Let's take a look at some sources of added minion resistances. From the passive skill tree and ascendancies, 23% to minion elemental resistances can be obtained from the Indomitable Army Wheel, while 30% can be obtained from the Necromancer's Commander of Darkness ascendancy notable. Meanwhile, on gear, bone rings can roll up to 30% to minion elemental resistances, which can be improved to 36% using resistance catalysts, and you can also craft a modifier which doesn't share the same mod pool for a further 12%, improved to 14% with catalysts, and there's also the implicit on top, for 15% improved to 18% with catalysts, for a potential total of up to plus 68% to elemental resistances for your minions for each ring slot. Then a further 30% can be obtained on Spirit Shield base types, and Cobalt Jewels can also roll up to 15% as well, while the Elemental Army support can further increase supported minion resistances as well. You could even consider making use of Purity of Fire and Purity of Elements to help boost your own defenses and help solve that resistance problem on the Formless Inferno, whilst also increasing the life of your minions as long as they're in range of your auras. Purity of Fire does increase maximum fire resistance for your minions, but the amount of fire resistance it grants on top is more than worth it. So these are the majority of sources for added minion elemental resistances, and by combining a lot of them, it's possible to reach plus 350% or more to minion fire resistance. That's going to be a lot of minion life, which translates into a lot of damage using Minion Instability. So we've established that this unique has a lot of potential in scaling builds using minion life as a source of damage. So why is it only being used by just 6 characters across all league types in Necropolis? Well, being a helmet, the Formless Inferno must compete against crafted minion gem level helmets which have access to a bunch of useful mods on top of the +2 to all minion gem levels. Gem levels for minion skills improve the base life that the minion has, which then makes modifiers to minion life more effective. Meanwhile, as I said, these helmets can have so many other useful modifiers, everything from defenses gained from damage taken as, to offense from minion life from Eldritch Implicits, and even mana reservation efficiency there too. A good crafted helmet is hard to pass up. With that said, however, the Formless Inferno can outscale crafted helmets in terms of the damage gained from minion life, where the larger issue is that gearing for such a build becomes very difficult, especially when a lot of items that already roll minion life modifiers are now also required to have minion resistances to get the most out of this unique. Thank you to these wonderful people for supporting my channel. If you enjoy the content I make here on YouTube, consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron today. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.